What's going on, everybody? Today, I have a special guest. I'm here with Rex Jones. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. I want to ask him just about his life, his journey, where he went. He's back now, and just what he thinks about the world and his new show that's going to come up. So, thank you for joining, Rex. Appreciate you for being here.
I really appreciate it.
All right, folks. Dream Rare Podcast starts now.
It's the Dream Rare Podcast. Welcome to the show. The way to get the news at the desk or on the road. Let's go. God is great and success in our control. The world is crazy, but we get better from obstacles. Yeah.
What's going on Facebook? What's going on YouTube? What's going on Rumble? Just letting you guys know, we're going to talk to Rex for about hour and a half. And I'm not going to read the chats because I really want to be present and focused. And I feel like I do better interviews when I do that. So before we start, just give me a thumbs up in the chat if it looks good and sounds good. And then we're going to get it cracking. In the meantime, how you doing, Rex?
Doing fantastic. I had a relatively busy work day, but now streaming with you, couldn't have a better time.
And you just set up your studio. So you're doing your own show. Is that coming up?
Yes. So I'm going to be doing a couple different shows. I'm going to be doing Rex at Dawn, which is going to be a 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. show. I'll be doing a Saturday show, which will be taped and then released on Wednesday. And that's called The Gray Area with a good friend of mine, Tim Tompkins. And I'll be doing a Sunday show, Tomorrow's News Tonight, after my dad's time slot on Infowars, but that'll be an independent show. It'll just kick off right after that one. So that'll be 6 to 8 p.m.
Sweet. All right. So I'm going to start it. I want to kind of, without being too weird or biographical with it, I want to kind of go through your life. So, as people know, or some people might not, you're Alex Jones's son. Like growing up, when did you realize your dad had like a interesting job that wasn't normal? And it was, I guess, just controversial, worth understanding.
I mean, pretty much day one, like I guess, around like second, third grade, you kind of gain sentience. Maybe you start realizing things about the world and whatnot. And I was like, hey, a lot of people really like us and a lot of people don't really like us. What's that all about? And what's up with this studio and these cameras and these guests? And I mean, I think I met Louis Farrakhan when I was like 8 years old. So stuff like that kind of, starts to germinate in your mind. You're like, maybe this isn't too regular. But me personally, I always loved it, right? So when I was a little boy, before they were even in the place that they're at now, the Infowars building where they've been for 15 years, the old operation used to be done right outside my bedroom, and then it was moved to a pet store. So I remember kind of an era of things that really no one except Alex and like very few other people do, So it's been a long journey. And the thing that I really got to experience growing up that was unique and really gave me kind of a love for the game was seeing the growth of the operation, right? Because we had 7 people when we moved into the current building that we've been in now for like 15, 16 years. And at its peak, Infowars had, I believe, 78 or 82 employees. So that was something for me where like I got to see a very clear progression of timeline. I got to see the business get made, the show get made, really the Jonesverse get created. So like I was always just very interested in that. And I realized from a very early age that wasn't necessarily normal, but it was pretty cool.
All right. So you embraced it. You were locked in. I'm sure, your father showed you the way. And when was the first time you hit the cameras? Because I remember seeing you. I don't know exactly how old you were, but I was like, man, this guy's a star in the making.
I think when I was about 9 or 10 years old, I started doing a little like pop-in spots, right? Because in the studio, even to this day, like there's a ton of mics everywhere in the control room. So like a crew member or a guest walking in or another one of the show hosts can, pop in and give a take. So I probably started giving like little 30-second, 1-minute takes when I was like, like 9, 10 years old. But the first report I ever did was called Terrorism 101. And we had one of these like weird like little board game, kind of like Risk, but more, edgy than that. And I was kind of playing with the board and I had a Guy Fawkes mask on. And I was talking about, the Cloward and Piven kind of manipulation, geopolitical strategies, back then. So that was pretty cool. That was my first appearance on camera.
Well, I got to ask about that. So in order to even talk about stuff like that, that's pretty deep intellectual political philosophy. Like at what point did you start reading or listening to what your father was saying to even know that? Like for an 11, 12-year-old to know stuff like that is pretty advanced.
Yeah, I had probably been watching this show for like 3-4 years at that point. I mean, the thing is about The Office, I grew up there, right? Like that was my home. Like I spent more time in the Infowars office than any place I've ever lived in. And my parents got divorced when I was very young, like around that age, like, 11, 12 years old. I made my first appearance on camera when they were both still married, of course. So my mom was fine with it. That wasn't an issue there. But I was always a fan of the show, and I grew up there, and that was kind of my safe place. So I grew up watching news, not just Alex, but I mean the greats like Gerald Celente. My dream is to interview Gerald one day. I love him to death, and just growing up watching people like that.
I know you were on his show a decent amount, like maybe I want to say like 7, 8 years ago, maybe. I remember you were popping up more and more, and then you kind of disappeared for a while, and kind of just came back recently. I know, like your Twitter. I saw you back on Twitter a couple months ago. I saw you posting more. You got the studio. Where'd you go, or what was your thought process on kind of just doing your thing for a minute?
For sure. So let's do a little walkthrough, right? So I start doing these reports when I'm like 11, 12 years old. That turns into like a semi full-time thing where like I'll leave school early, or I might not go to school at all that day. I might just chill at the office and learn things, right? So I got very into it around like 13, 14, 15 years old. And that was around the time that the whole Trump election thing was going on. And no one was a bigger fan of Trump, especially in the first administration, especially the first election, really, than me. I remember being at Schlitterbahn with my dad and my grandparents and my sisters, and we were celebrating something, and we had gotten a little, like one of the apartments there to stay, and we were watching the first Republican debate. And I pointed at the TV, I pointed at Trump, and I said, that guy is going to be president. And my dad's like, you're an idiot. You don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about. But I was right. And I worked on him over a period of months, and I kept on watching those debates. I used to like fall asleep to them. Kind of weird, but I kept working on him, and eventually, he kind of adopted the same position because it was clear to see. Trump was 30%, 35% in the polls. Jeb Bush, the guy, the sacred cow they held up with that please clap moment. Who was that other guy? It's like an earlier politician. He did like a yeah scream, and that like whatever. I forget that guy's name. I believe that was in the 2008 or 2004 election. But yeah, so I was just a huge fan of Trump, and that really turbocharged me into politics. I had been a show viewer. Alex had explained the world to me, geopolitics, kind of the rise and fall of empire and whatnot, and the general, globalist strategy for total human enslavement and the technocracy and the coming kind of mark of the beast system, which unfortunately we see now like enacted more and more in modern day. So I was always very aware of that, but that was more of a grand thing. But I got very into domestic American politics around the time being like 14, 15 years old. So that's when I did most of my reporting, 14, 15, 16 years old. And then I turned 17. I think I was still 17. I don't think I was 18 yet. And the 2020 election cycle kind of kicked off. And, we had really high hopes for Trump, the whole, all the build the wall and the rah, rah, rah and bring America back. And Trump really was the avatar, of American freedom, of vitality, of make America great again. But his first administration, what is it that we always hear? He surrounded himself with the neocons. He surrounded himself with the bad people. And that's why he couldn't get anything done. So by 2019, I was kind of sick of it all, but I still liked the guy a lot. And I still was proud of him, being our president. And I still wanted to go out and support him and get other people to support him too. So the 2020 election cycle, I'm like 17, 18 years old, graduate high school, whatnot. And I go around with my dad, I go around with Alex to all the Stop the Steal rallies in Arizona, all around the country, in DC, the Million Man March, all of that. And that's when I really started to notice that it was kind of a different world than I had grown up in. And of course, things have been changing over that entire period of time, but there was kind of a rot in the air, and I can't really describe it. Something bad was coming. And of course, COVID was coming, but none of us knew that was happening, right? So there was kind of this sickness in the air, and I recognized it. And I was like, okay, this feels weird, but I'm going to keep on doing what I'm doing. And I ended up going to a GOP event with Owen Schroyer in, I believe, late 2020, I think right before January. And there were like 400 or 500 people there. There were like, I think 24 in-person speakers. The event was like 3-4 hours long. This is outside somewhere in the Dallas Metroplex area. And they had this person kind of middle of the pack of the speakers come on. And this person was trans, but was now just gay, but wanted to be a Republican and wanted to build a coalition and whatnot. It was a nice person. All right. This was a person that wasn't someone that you need to scream and curse at, but that's what the audience began to do when the person, gave their little speech. And even if you don't agree with the person, that's not how you treat people. And that's not a Christian way to treat people. So that made me very angry. And we had, or we still have, the Infowars battle tank, which is that giant, kind of SWAT team style vehicle. I'm sure you've seen it, right? It's got a giant PA system on it. So I climbed into the hatch and it pops out of the top, and I got the microphone and I started to say, this is why you'll never win another election again. While this is all happening, they had like dozens of middle-aged women twerking in the street to like Trump rap music and to Trump salsa music. And I was just like, I've woken up into a nightmare. Like this isn't real right now. Like, what is happening? What am I a part of? Because I just, beyond anything, I knew they were going to lose. I knew they were going to lose. And whatever you think about the election, the margins, whatnot, the margins were never going to be big enough in 2020 for him to get over the top because of that attitude. It was this like smug, superior MAGA attitude of we're the new establishment, we're in charge. And I see a lot of that now, which is why I kind of try to rail against it. But I got on the PA system and I kind of gave my piece and I told them off. And then we came back and everyone told me I did a good job that I was with, and it wasn't that big a deal. But coming back to the Infowars offices, I was employed as a reporter. I wasn't authorized to do that. I disturbed a GOP event and yelled at them and called them like idiots and morons, and I cursed. So my dad wasn't too happy about that. And we had a long talk, a long conversation, and I made the decision to quit just because, I didn't want to, have to tone down myself at all. And we had that disagreement, and I was a minor. I am his son, obviously. He's got a lot of authority and power over me, as he should. But, I had to kind of go my own way. So I ended up moving out to East Texas for about a year. And before that even happened, I had created my LLC. I'd created my company, I believe, which is about to be 5 years old. And I had been drop shipping Berkey water filters, and I was making decent enough money at that. So I was like, okay, I'll go live out in the family ranch for a little while. I'll go maintain the deer lease. I'll go cut roads with the Kubota. I'll go, like harvest the hay and whatnot and have fun for a year and just try to figure out what I want to do. And while I was out there, I kind of thought about what I had learned over my totality of life experience. And the thing that's really always been beautiful to me about Infowars, of course, the message, the network, the various hosts that have come and gone, all incredible. And that's beautiful. But for me, like talking about the growth aspect earlier, I saw this little tiny place that had started in a pet store grow to being this massive, massive engine for truth and liberty and growth. So I looked at what had happened, and because of the way that we've always been treated, even before the great bannings of 2018, which definitely soured the mood going into 2020. That whole era really sucked. 2018 was a very bad year. But going into that, I had been thinking about it for a while, and I was like, I learned a lot about business while I was at Infowars. I did customer service, I did advertising, I did copywriting, I did all these things. And the thing that's really special about Infowars, and the reason why Infowars has been able to be so free and unadulterated, and it really is primarily like what Alex thinks and what Alex believes, and that's what he projects because he owns the place, right? And that's why they wanted to take it from him. We were an entirely self-funded operation. In 2011 and 2012, Alex had gold sponsors. He was doing ad reads for Blue Diamond Gusset jeans and all this, but you can't hire writers and producers and other show hosts and start other shows with that kind of money. So he got the idea to start selling nutritional supplements. And I really fell in love with that. And that was a huge part of very successful, massive formulas that a ton of people have loved, like Knockout, Brain Force, Turbo Force. I've had an influence on all those different formulas and many more. So having this online business for a while, the most basic form one, just drop shipping water filters, I was like, I bet I can do a lot better job at this than I'm currently doing. So I got into supplement manufacturing, supplement warehousing, and then supplement e-commerce. So that's what I've been doing for the past, really 4 years very intensely, was focusing on that and using the skills that I learned to create high quality products for people at really affordable prices. Because industry standard, these people are getting robbed when they order something. Like if someone tries to make a product, right, they might pay $10, $12 a bottle to make something. It should only cost you $6 or $7 for even the most high quality product. So I knew this, I knew the manufacturers, and I just kind of went into business for myself. And that's what I've been doing. But certain things like the Ukraine war, the Gaza war, and then kind of Trump's domestic failures have really made me feel like I got to have a voice and speak out about this.
Yeah.
That's the deal.
Let me ask you this, because I love my father, but I remember when he coached my baseball team one year. I didn't like him as a coach. He was kind of a tough father. It sounds like your dad is like tough on you as well. And I like that my dad is that way, but you know, it's easy to butt heads. And I remember being like, I don't want him as my coach, you know, even though he probably was a good coach. It was just hard hearing it from him. With you, you said you kind of butted heads with them. You went to do your own thing. Now you're back to media. Are you doing it? I know you're working with him a little bit, but are you doing it independently and thinking like, you know, it's going to work better? Or are you kind of just working with him again and just being like, I think we could figure it out this time?
Well, let's be 100%, right? So, you know, I describe Alex, really, my dad, as like a type A personality. He gets focused on one thing and he's the best at doing it, and he focuses on it for, you know, all the time he has, and he puts all his effort and all his energy into it. I'm more a type B. I like to multitask. I'm pretty relaxed. I enjoy, you know, trusting other people to do jobs and whatnot. And he's kind of been a person that, you know, always wanted to do everything himself. And that's part of the reason why he's great. But, you know, growing up under that, that can be difficult, right? So, you know, I wanted to do this purely independently so I'd have more freedom with my time, with my schedule. And so I wouldn't have to work for anybody else. Honestly, I just really enjoy being my own boss when it comes down to it at the end of the day, right? And I could get a show at Infowars. I could go do that. And I'm very honored that they have me on as a guest. It's still my favorite broadcast. I still watch it nearly every day. It's just, you know, that's his thing, right? And it's on me to go do my own thing. And that's always been something that he's expressed to me, is like, you need to be independent. You need to be able to do things yourself. You need to learn how to do all these different jobs. And I feel like it would be a, you know, disservice to take all the skills that he gave me and then just kind of, you know, take the easy route. So I'm trying to learn how to do this for myself because it's a personal growth journey as much as anything for me. So I think that's what it really comes down to.
You said you're 22.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask you about like your generation. I know that you're different. You had a different upbringing, but like you probably are more tapped into like what people that age are doing. I want to ask two things. Like COVID, I feel like for the average kid that had to go to high school, college, they're stuck in the system in any way, play sports. It was such a psychological, abusive relationship. Like they got shut down for a couple of years. They couldn't socialize. Also, on top of that, you have cell phones, technology. People were already antisocial, like the younger generation, I noticed. And then you hit them with COVID on top of that and all of that sort of abuse. Like, what do you see on that side of it? And then I want you to talk about the other side of that generation as well, where it does seem like the people who are right wing are way different than like the boomer Republican. That's what I see.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I was graduating class of 2020, right? We had a virtual graduation. That's not normal, just for starters. And I know I was very deeply depressed that year because, you know, the world ended. Like the streets were empty, couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. People were scared to hang out with each other. That's a really weird world, and that's a very unhealthy place to be. And I think that's really why I was so happy around that time to go move out east, just because like I was out in the beautiful nature. I was out on the ranch. I was doing like manual labor and whatnot. And that brought me a certain level of freedom during that time. I think Gen Z, like sometimes I call it generation cooked or whatever. I think that there's a lot of double-edged sword stuff going on. I think that we've all been terminally online for far too long. I mean, like I remember getting the first iPad, you know, that my grandparents had and just like spending like $300 on Dragon Veil and then getting screamed at and almost killed for that. You know, but like that's not a healthy thing for a child to have access to, you know, infinite dopamine, you know, cartoon animals and whatnot. You get to build your own farm and spend real money doing it. It's all just everything in this world, unfortunately, is predictive programming. And that's how they set people up. So growing up like that, as tens of millions of kids also did, you have a hard time discerning what's real and what's fake because you're just constantly bombarded with information. And then you also have a hard time with desensitization, right? Because like we see so much horrible stuff on the phone, on the TV, on the screen all day, all the time. Like, Lord have mercy, that video of what happened to that girl on the train. I'm not trying to get into that topic right now, but I have seen that probably 300 times, and I don't want to see it 301 times. I didn't want to see it 300 times, but it's just bombardment, 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 that and all manner of other things. And, you know, I have hope for the generation because it seems like with all that terrible stuff and with all the terrible exposure, there's also a very strong knowledge of, hey, like maybe there's a better way out of this. Maybe we don't want to live in this world. And I think the boomers, the Gen X, even the millennial, maybe they might still, you know, I think they were raised in a more complacent way as to where, this is the world. It is what it is. Gen Z is like, this is the world. This is what we see. This is what reality is. And there's no running from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think psychologically, and I actually feel bad doing it myself because I'm 35, and I catch myself sometimes, like even I have a younger brother, and I'm like, man, I love like I had that last childhood like where cell phones were just coming out. I remember
Sounds like
being Yeah, I remember being in college, and I was like maybe like sophomore, junior, and there was this girl that was a freshman in college, and she texted me across the room when I was in the room, and like that was unthinkable. Now people do it all the time, but I was like, why would you text me when we're in the same room? Like, just come talk to me. And, but like now that's almost normal. But I was the end of like, we remember what it was like to play out at night and not really have all that technology. So psychologically, it does not just a disservice to the younger generation, but also like, the boomers are on the computer all the day. I'm on my cell phone all the day. We're all doing it. But then, like you said, the older generation, they had like picket fences. Their 9 to 5 actually got them what they wanted. And they say, you youngins, you millennials, you Gen Xers or whatever, Gen Z, it's like, you guys, you don't work hard enough. You're not. But when we do work, hard, it doesn't, the money's not going as far because of inflation and all of the scams going on, health insurance, car insurance, like Social Security, all these things. So I guess, do you find on the conservative side, because I see it even online, to me, it feels like the right wingers and the conservatives, I don't know if I'd say further right, like in a negative way, but they're just not the same as these boomer Republicans where they're like, I like Trump. That's all I know. I'm not going to think about much. It feels like the younger Republicans are way edgier because they have to grow up in this world that they don't have that story of, oh, I was 50 and I retired and everything was easy. They have this like, oh, this world looks crazy. Crime is rising and everybody hates me just for who I am.
I think it comes down to that old hippie adage, and I used to make fun of it, but now I realize how true it is. It's two wings on the same bird, man. Like the promise of Trump and what he promised to deliver and what he represented, really, I think my generation was heavily exposed to that kind of messaging. Even if he didn't follow through on it, the promise was there. And there was like, okay, even if it's a pseudo third party option, there is this third party option where it's not a neocon Republican and it's not, kind of a libtard Democrat. There's a third option here. What's this guy doing? What's he about? He's talking about America first, right? And I think that was super appealing to people. And especially like nothing will ignite your fire like betrayal, right? And I feel like we were betrayed in definite certain respects when it came to the administration, especially in this recent term. I think my generation realizes it's a lot of BS. And I think that's where you see kind of a departure from the Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro types, and more into this independent alt media. Alt media is also available. I mean, my dad, I am so proud of my dad for what he did. Rogan created podcasting. My dad created alternative media. He's the reason why we're all sitting here basically in our home studios today. A lot of people were inspired by him. People like Fuentes were inspired by him, and he'll admit that himself, right? So younger people were shown that there was another option. They didn't have to watch Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. They could go on YouTube. They could go on Rumble now. And especially with the internet the past few years with Elon buying Twitter and all that, after the chains have been broken, it's the wild, wild west out there. And no one wants to watch pre-planned, all this BS and whatnot, just formulaic content. They want to watch real video. They want to watch real people. They want to watch a real show. So I think that's what it comes down to. I think that woke up a hell of a lot of people.
On that topic, I want to ask you about like your dad and Fuentes. I know they have a good relationship, even though they disagree on a lot. Nick constantly debates on Alex's platform. I think I watched them debate Dinesh D'Souza on Infowars, and I thought that was excellent. They both were very respectful. It was super cool. Nick has become a superstar. For years, they tried to blacklist him, ban him. He's very edgy, I think, in like what he says. So it was never mainstream. And I think the right and the left kind of tried to bury him. I believe he just got a New York Times piece where they're realizing how big he is. So they're covering it one way or another. I'm sure it's not very favorable, but tell me, like, what do you think about like him and Infowars relationship, and just in general, like, what do you think about his rise kind of almost from the ashes, where they tried to basically destroy him and kick him out saying he's too crazy. And now he's just, it seems like he's allowed to be in the mainstream and a lot of people are tending to like him.
Right. I mean, let's start with the Infowars question. So seeing him on the platform really makes me happy because it harkens me back to the olden days, where we'd have people from all different kinds of perspectives. And Alex doesn't agree with Nick on a lot of things. They have hard disagreements. My dad's real pro-Trump. Nick has been in recent time pretty anti-Trump, but they're able to come together because they're willing to have a real conversation. Like, I know for a fact my dad enjoys talking to Nick, and I know for a fact Nick enjoys talking to my dad. So seeing that genuine connection, it makes for a really watchable show. And I watch every single one of their collaborations together. I don't watch like every America First broadcast or anything. I'll catch, maybe like one a week. I'll go see what he's doing. But that's more so because I'm a fan of broadcast media, right? Like, I watch a lot of different shows because I'm a fan of people's unique styles. And I really see a lot of Infowarsy elements in what he does now. So I'm a fan of that for sure. But as far as them suppressing him, I mean, it's a tale as old as time. It's the Streisand effect. You can't do that. It doesn't work out because no matter what happens, if you keep working, you will win eventually. And like, I've seen that for myself in business. I've seen that at Infowars, a place that 2 years ago I thought they were done, but they're still around. They're still alive because they continue to fight and people continue to support them. And that's amazing and that's incredible. And it really shows you that no matter what the propaganda is, no matter how negative things are, if you keep working, you will win. I do believe in that.
One thing I'll say that I've seen both sides of left, right, and even the fraction that's going on the right now. I've seen both sides of them say, "I can't believe you platformed him." Right? Like, if Tucker Carlson has,
come on, Netanyahu's getting interviewed. I mean, let's calm down. Like, that's what I say.
Yeah, and I didn't even mean Nick per se, but like, I'll see someone that like, oh, I can't believe Tucker Carlson platformed that person. But then I'll see people that are critical of Israel. They'll say, I can't believe, Patrick Bet-David platformed Netanyahu. And what I always tell people is like, it's the wrong framing. You have to say, I think Patrick should have given him a harder interview, or I think Tucker should have given him a harder interview. I find it that both sides are like, oh, why would you platform Netanyahu? If you can get a Netanyahu interview, you can't say he can't be platformed because I don't like him. It doesn't matter if you're left, right, this side of the right, this side of the right, but everybody does that. They throw this fit like, why would you have him on your show? That's not the right framing. It's, even Candace Owens interviewed Tate. I can't believe she had him on.
Right.
No, the proper thing that I would say, like, if I didn't even watch that interview, but say I watched it and thought it was like a softball interview, I wouldn't say, oh, you can't have Andrew on. I'd say you probably could have asked tougher questions. I didn't even see it, but to me, that's the proper framing if you truly believe in the First Amendment, because back in the day, everyone was platformed everywhere. It's this new phenomenon that you can't talk to certain people.
Now, I think you're right. I think you're 100% right about that. I mean, this is the public square, right? This is the digital public square, and all these platforms, the internet operates off of Section 230. So these are supposed to be utilities. And that's why people like my dad have always said, like, this is free to air, repost it, restream it as much as you want. That's what we want. I think that's the right attitude to have about all this stuff, personally. So I agree with you.
I guess I'll ask you about like the fraction on the right now. There seems to be a divide. I'm not mad at it personally, because I think as long as people are civil and intelligent with it, like there is a lot of discussions that need to be had. I don't think we should just worship Trump or the GOP. But there tends to be, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but I will for the sake of the argument. You have one side that's very pro-Israel, very pro-Trump, and they trust Trump and they trust the Marco Rubio foreign policy that Trump's doing, or whoever Trump involves. And then you have another side that seems like they're critical of Israel. They don't like what they're doing. I would say the Thomas Masseys, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Nicks, not that they're all the same, but like, it's tending to kind of fracture, and then people kind of get thrown in a group. But that's really like the divide is like, should you trust Trump? Should you trust him on foreign policy, domestic policy? Or, is he doing the wrong thing? And should we like look at it? How do you see that sort of stuff?
Well, I'd really like to see a legitimate third party in the United States. I think that it's long overdue. I would like an option to be able to vote against both sides of the equation at this point. That's my personal opinion. I think that the left-right dichotomy is slowly dying, right? Because you have all these people that are really hardcore leftists, that are really left-wing, and they were raised on a steady diet of anti-colonialist, anti-America, all this blah, blah, blah. And then they're expected to come in and be supportive of the Israeli state. And then they have this massive cognitive dissonance with that, and they split from that, and they go, whoa, like, we don't agree with this. And you see even the Democratic Party, they're having issues. They're down in the dirt with that. And then the Republicans on the other side, with the whole story of Trump and what Trump's going to do and put America first. Then we see all this foreign funding. We see the wars. I mean, I voted for Trump. I voted for Trump twice. I voted for him in 2020 and I voted for him in 24. And my primary reason for going to the ballot box, and even more than that, when he got shot, I was leaving church and I went to the Infowars office the second it happened, basically. And I hopped on air and I pulled the cross out of my shirt and I told people to vote for him because I thought they wanted to kill him because he wanted to stop the wars. And the Ukraine conflict, over 1 million dead. It's not good. It's not good for the world, guys. And we're here in America. We got 2 big oceans and we're protected and we don't really feel all these things. All these other countries like China and Russia, they've lost, and Iran, they've lost millions of people in wars. So I think the American attitude is kind of very spoiled and decadent when it comes to the geopolitical atmosphere right now, because there's mass death going on right now that we are in part responsible for, and the world is looking at us and they want to like us. They still want to like America. And that blows my mind. I mean, I love my country, but if I was a person living over, like in the Donbass region right now, I really wouldn't like America. And that's the same thing with, someone over in a Muslim country, they get drone strike, their dad dies. I get why that person doesn't like America. I don't like that he wants to, hurt people here, but I understand the logic behind it. And then we're told by our politicians, no, we're the best. We're the greatest country on earth. We're number one. We're the most moral people around. And I don't think the youth buys it. I don't think that more independent fraction of the Republican Party buys it. And I don't think that more indoctrinated side of the Democratic Party buys it. And for different reasons, but it's kind of a weird coalition being built right now.
Well, let me ask you this directly, like your opinion on it, and similar question, but I'll get a little more specific. Like, Trump ran, I voted for him in 2020, 2024 as well. And, there's another conversation to be had about that. But in general, he did run on, I'm kind of the peace president. I'm the negotiation president. I'll end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. He was telling Netanyahu to finish up because he didn't want it to weigh in on him. If Netanyahu could finish whatever he's doing under Biden, then it's not Trump's responsibility. But since then, he's gotten involved, probably more involved in Israel and Palestine. He hasn't been able to end the war in Ukraine. And now he's doing this thing. Instead of being the negotiation president, he's kind of like faking negotiations and then bombing the people when they go to negotiations, which is what happened in Qatar today. He said he wanted to negotiate, and then they struck. And Qatar, by the way, regardless, like I understand Israel's an ally, but also, and the Israel people, like, they don't like Qatar.
Our largest base is there, right?
That's what I was just going to say. They are our ally and we have a base there. So I'm not saying they're the best ally. You could debate it, but yeah, it's a crazy move kind of to like strike in our ally where we have a base. But in general, that's my question to you is like, do you see it that way? Cause I don't know exactly what you think. Like, do you think Trump is failing? Do you think he's trying? Like, how do you see it?
I think it's a repeat of the first administration in a lot of ways. There was a lot of talk about he's surrounding himself with better people now. I like Tulsi Gabbard. I like RFK Jr. I like them both a lot, right? But Tulsi Gabbard, you see her kind of get shunned and pushed to the back of the room, and the CIA director is the guy that gets to sit next to Trump. And like, isn't that a bit odd? She's the person that's supposed to deliver President Trump his daily briefing. And then we hear that doesn't go on. We hear all these weird things with the vaccines. I'm very anti-vax in a lot of different ways. My great grandma had the polio vaccine, was vaccine injured. So like I should have inherent doubt there. And then with the rollout of the COVID shots, I mean, it's mass murder. They killed millions of people. And, it's still available. We make it a little harder to get available. It is what it is. No. Like, that's not why we voted for you. We voted for you to stop the wars. We voted for you to secure the border. And we voted for you to stop this vaccine stuff. And it just seems to me the Israel issue is more complicated, right? Because they have a ton of weapons. They have a ton of agency in the region, and they're very, very deep in bed with us, right? So it's harder to get that conflict to stop. He could end the Ukraine war in 24 hours. He just needs to stop sending them weapons and turn off Starlink, and it would be over. But we deal with this evil creature in Kiev known as Zelensky, who is just advocating for the destruction of his own state, it would be like having Kevin Spacey as the president, because he played the president on TV and Zelensky also did that. So they've got Kevin Spacey as their president advocating for the war to, we want the war to continue. I need nuclear weapon. It goes on and on. I want more weapon. We beat the Russians. As more and more of them die, there was a peace agreement shortly after the war, right? After the war began in 2022, I believe, there was a peace agreement on the table in Istanbul, and it was just, hey, you recognize that Donbass is independent. They can speak Russian language. They can talk to the police in Russian. They can go to court in Russian, and they can have Russian-speaking schools. That's all those people wanted. Keep in mind, 30% of Ukraine is ethnically Russian. Oh, no, we cannot have this because the neo-Nazis in my own government, they kill me if I sign peace deal. Like, that's what happened. He was threatened with death. There was a coup in 2014 in Ukraine, which leads to him being in power, and the neo-Nazi Banderist element in Ukraine will kill him if he allows a peace deal to come around. So it's a situation in which we're complicit fully, and more than that, even because of the Starlink, especially, we're running the situation in Ukraine. We are directly responsible. We just sent them a bunch of like plane-launched missiles that can go like really, really far into Russia. I don't want to say a kilometer number because I'll get it wrong, but we're sending them more and more weapons. Keep in mind, December of 2024, we were the closest to nuclear war we've ever been on the doomsday clock. And that was because Biden was going to send them more and more of those long-range missiles. We're nearing that same point again. And whatever you think about Russia, whatever you think about them, they want to do development stuff with us in the Arctic. There's trillions of dollars of resources available in the Arctic. They're the only people in the world that have a nuclear icebreaker fleet, and we have a ton of resources that are in our area that they'd collaborate with us on. They can extract crude oil at sub-zero temperatures. That's something that we don't have the technology to do. We are not, in fact, the best at everything because we're not the best at that. So why can't we come together? Why can't we have free economic peace, economic deals? Why can't our nations become richer? Why can't we have peace? Instead, no, we have to get poorer. We have to have more war because Raytheon and Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman, they have to get paid. It's a lot like healthcare. We pay the most for the most mediocre product around. The amount of missiles we make in a year, they make in 2 months. It's crazy. The math ain't mathing. If you look at the Russian losses versus the Ukrainian losses, the Russians, I believe they lose around 3,000 a month in like irrecoverable losses. So like serious injury and death. The Ukrainians deal with over 700 desertions a day. It's not going to work, guys. So I just like to see it stop. And he wants that Nobel Peace Prize so bad. Pick up the phone, man. Like, please. We'd all love you too. Like, why can't it stop? That's my view.
First of all, I enjoyed that Zelensky impression thoroughly. Thank you for that.
I do it a lot.
That's good. That's a good one. I'm going to run this by you. Tell me if you agree, disagree, and then expand on it. But, you know, in theory, it might not be that hard to get the Ukraine-Russia conflict to stop. You know, Trump was pretty confident when he was running, and he just really hasn't been successful there. I think it's because it connects to the grand equation. Same with Venezuela. Like I'll say this about Venezuela. I've never met a Venezuelan person who likes Maduro. So it's hard to really defend the guy because every Venezuelan says he sucks. Everybody's
I met a guy a couple of weeks ago, not to interrupt. He hated Maduro. He's from Venezuela. Yeah.
Never met somebody that's liked him. Because I also know he's against Zionism. He's with Russia, Iran. Like he's part of that axis. So, of course, that's why our government doesn't like him. But it's like nobody there likes him. So it's like they kind of want him gone. Anybody I've talked to, at least. But with all that being said, that's to me, that's what Venezuela is about. It's not just about drugs because there's drugs coming from other country. Even that boat, that's a whole different conversation. But I get people are concerned with the constitutional authority, whether to hit or not. To me, I'm just like, are they even telling the truth about it? Besides the fact whether they had the authority to do it or not, because I know that there's drugs coming in from Mexico. They're not shooting Mexican boats.
Oh, you're talking about the boat.
I'm just saying in general, like there's drugs coming from all over, but they're only going after Venezuela because Venezuela is working with Russia and Venezuela is working with Iran. And that's why I think they don't want to stop the Syrian-Russian war, because I do think that Trump is probably the most aligned with Israel that I've ever seen. And in order to get Syria, which gravely helps Israel and America in that alliance, they needed to distract Russia with Ukraine. So by distracting Russia with Ukraine, Russia didn't have the resources to go into Syria and help them as much as they were. Bashir al-Assad get kicked out. This is a whole nother tangent that I won't go down, but a former al-Qaeda guy takes over Syria. Nobody seems to care. He's doing business with the West. But to me, that's the thing, is like, I have come to the conclusion that for one reason or another, people could say it's justified or not, but I think that Trump is, the same as Rubio, Lindsey Graham, etc., where he's just beholden to Israel, or at least he's so aligned with them now, he feels like that's the right decision to make geopolitically. And I think that's why the Russia-Ukraine thing can't end, even though it seems like it's a totally different war. They're all aligning, and Trump's trying to do whatever he can with tariffs and anything to go after anybody that helps Russia, Iran, or Venezuela in any way.
It's definitely a game of factions, like you speak to, right? That's what it all is. It's a great game, and there are different players and different teams, right? And he's seen a lot of benefit from linking up with the pro-Israel side. I mean, they funded his second campaign. Trump's big selling point in the first campaign was this is self-funded. And that's why I resonated with that message so much, was because I understood what it looks like to self-fund yourself. It's not the easiest thing in the world, even if you do have money. You have to spend it all on this one thing. Do you want to do it? Even if you are a billionaire. But we see Miriam Adelson come in with the 100 million. We see all these other things, and it makes sense. He goes, okay, I can make myself believe, or I can believe that these people are good, and I'm going to be the peace president, and they're going to allow me to be the peace president. Maybe we don't end the wars too soon, but it's going to be okay. I'm going to be able to come up with a really good way to fix all this. And meanwhile, you're 79 years old. You've been president twice now. You're in office. You're aging. That job kills you. And I think you kind of slow down and lose your mind a little bit. And I'm not saying he's senile. I'm not saying he's like Biden, but I think that it's a lot to expect of a 79, basically 80-year-old man to be able to navigate all these geopolitical landmines and issues when he's got people he's beholden to at the end of the day. And, maybe if he was 40, 50 years old, 60 years old, he'd be able to do it all at once. But people are human. No one is perfect except for Jesus Christ. And everyone's got their own flaws. And it seems to me like he's just gotten too old. That's what I personally believe. That's what I'd like to believe. That's the nicest explanation for what's been going on. But I see it as a situation where he's a guy that likes to be complimented. He likes to be flattered. And you say a nice thing to him and you give him a reward. It doesn't have to be monetary. He might just go your way because you're the last person he heard, and he's heard so many other things today. It's like, hey, whatever. And the president gets now Fox News style briefings. They show him video clips. That's how they brief the president now. And whatever you think about Biden, that's scary as hell to me. That bothers me a lot because I've been watching people like Colonel Wilkerson. He does a great weekly show with, who does he do it with? He does a really good weekly show on Dialogue Works that I try to catch, and Judge Napolitano as well. And he worked, I believe, whenever Colin Powell was around. So he's like a real blue blood OG. And even back then he says, yeah, they did a lot of things that I didn't agree with. I didn't think were morally right, but there was at least like a structure, right? And there was planning, and the president knew everything and he understood. And that guy, Colonel Wilkerson, says he doesn't see a lot of that anymore. And I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, I know with even like the tariffs, I'll go off of that a little bit and a few other things. Like at first I'm like, let's see how it plays out. Personally, I'm not to be selfish, but I don't import anything for my business, so it doesn't affect me. I know if you're importing things from other countries, it does affect you. It's a tax. But I'm like, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt. My family it's genetic condition. We're bad about that.
It's okay.
I have been trying to import machines for supplement manufacture, and things that used to cost $12,000 to get a really huge industrial pill counter or fully automatic injector for a tincture. 12 grand goes up to 30 grand. And I saw it happen rapidly. And I was like, okay, I guess my plans are on pause. So I've seen that happen personally. It's pretty crazy. But go ahead.
No, I did. I talk all the time by myself here. So while you're here, please, that's part of the conversation. So yeah, I mean, I think it has negatively affected a lot of people. Some people it's helped. But the part that really got me, making me realize that maybe this isn't actually for us or our economy, is when he told, Canada that they might sacrifice their tariff deal because of their stance on Palestine. And then he said to India, he said, you guys are buying Russian oil. Like, now I'm going to punish you. And the thing is, there's a lot of things we could say about India in many different ways, but I don't care. I don't think they shouldn't be able to buy Russian oil. Like I don't hate Russia. I believe what George Washington said. When I seen these quotes recently, I was like, oh my gosh, I've always thought that. Now I'm just George Washington. That's good. No, good to know. But he said you can't overly hate another country or overly favor another country, because then it's going to come at the expense of your own country. So, at the end of the day, if you're trying so hard to go after Russia that you're sacrificing trade deals with the country just because they're trying to help this country. And, maybe I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but I can't help myself at this point. I just look at Russia, and even though I have no loyalty to any other country, I'm like, well, it's safe. The cities are safe. The people there are decent. They're builders. They're kind of crushing. China, it's communist. It's Chinese. I'm neither one of those at all. But they build, they're innovative, they have good technology, they have safe cities. And then you look at Europe and all the cities are falling apart. And just like that train incident in North Carolina, that's becoming a reality. So to me, it's like, are the people that are puppeting Trump or Trump himself now, if he's under his own autonomy, it's like, what's your end goal? Like, why do you want to punish Russia so bad? Why not punish, the UK until they stop replacing their citizens and ending their bloodlines? Like, why not use the tariffs to do that? How come they're always just going after countries that aren't like super gay and super like flooded with migrants?
Right. Well, I mean, I think it all comes down to the belief in American exceptionalism. I believe that's true for us as a people, but it's not true for us as a government, right? And we had a period after World War II where we were the only manufacturing power around, and we enjoyed immense wealth and success and influence because of that. And we kind of became the new British Empire. Well, times have changed. The Soviet Union fell in 1991. And those people in Russia lived under hell. They know what bad is. So they're willing to work really hard to get to a point to where they're, as a society, they're doing really well. So you look at us and we become decadent. Hard times create weak men, and then, or good times create weak men. And then you look at Russia, and then it's the hard times creating good men, right? I think that's a lot of what's gone on. I don't think we've really realized how soft we've gotten over here. And another thing, I spoke to it earlier, we're not really battle tested. We're used to being able to go into these third world countries and rain hellfire on them and then just take over. There are other superpowers in the world, right? Like Russia, they have more nukes than us. Why do we get to dictate in the global market who buys energy commodities from who? We blew up Nord Stream 2. Germany, the manufacturing and economic base of Europe, they were about to get really cheap, really high quality oil from Russia. We blew up that pipeline. Now they're destitute. Now they're about to go into debt, the place in Europe that had the best debt management. And that's all us. We make them buy our oil at 3 times the price. It's not logical, because if it was logical, we would find a way to still cooperate and come out on top. It'd be a little like sneak jabs here or there. We'd find a way to, get a better deal, but, everyone would still be doing okay. We're like, no, everyone must do terrible so that we can do great. And if you look at the world, we got 300 something million people here. Europe's got 900 million. 4 out of 5 people are in that global south. And I think that they are tired of being mistreated. I think that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, I don't trust our foreign policy. I know Mike Pompeo called it a liberal world order at one point, and obviously, I know your father used to talk about it a lot. George Bush used to call it a new world order, and then Pompeo said a liberal order. Why would a conservative want a liberal order? And when you look at all our allies, I think the proof's in the pudding. If America was doing all this war, but America was crushing and all our allies were crushing, it's like, okay, maybe these wars, even though they're messed up, they're justified. But you look at all our I think our only ally, if you could look at maybe 2 allies that aren't completely self-imploding, Poland is doing decent. And, Israel, I think, even though they're at war constantly, maybe I don't know if I'd call that great, but as far as like a cohesive nation, they're not replacing themselves. Everyone else is like, most of Europe is just Canada. So it's like, what is our allies doing for themselves? And, you can't help but notice the demographic patterns in all these countries. It's like, why is that not the number 1 or number 2 or number 3 or number 4 thing that you're talking about? Because without disrespecting anybody else, it's like this, Paris is not better than it used to be. London's not better than it used to be. New York, like none of these cities are. So what are we doing that's so great that we need to give to everyone else? Like, do we want St. Petersburg to look like San Francisco? It doesn't appeal to me.
Well, I think it all really comes down to that first report I did in that Guy Fawkes mask with the Risk board game. You collapse the third world. You bring in foreign foreign population isn't exposed to Western values or liberty. You make them the new permanent underclass, the new permanent majority. And then the tiny group of people at the top, they get to rule. And that's what it all comes down to, right? That's the great game. That's the Cloward and Piven. That's the strategy. That's how it's played. It's called the Hegelian dialectic. You get the groups of people to fight each other. And then with the power of the big country, you destroy the third world, which has the greater population. You bring the people there. The people from there aren't used to the values of the place they've been moved to. And then they make the place they've moved to just like little Somalia, and then the country becomes little Somalia. It's only the United States or Great Britain or Germany in name, and it's taken over. And the tiny group of people at top, they don't care. They get to live in the mega multi-trillion-dollar, giant slice of land they have, kind of Hunger Games District 1 style, and then everyone else kind of has to live in Hell World. It's a blend of 1984 and Brave New World. In Brave New World, people are vat grown. Everyone has like a level of disability they're given so that no one can have true independent thought, right? So they're all kind of inebriated already. I think they're like poisoned with alcohol or something. And they're given soma, they're given a drug to make them, oh, we feel so good, we feel so incredible, whatever. And there's a scene in that book where the main character flies out in a helicopter over the Black Sea. And for the first time, not seeing the civilization, the simulation he's used to, having experience, I believe he's with, a woman, having kind of an organic experience, because in Brave New World, sexuality is a lot like it is now with the modern, kind of DEI style movement, right? Like that's basically what we live in is Brave New World. But he starts having this organic human experience and he has a complete panic attack and he realizes that the whole world is basically a lie. And then in 1984, you have a massive permanent underclass ruled by the censors, the people at the top, and ignorance is strength, war is peace, all of this. And Eurasia is constantly at war with the other party. And this is just what we do. We live in the intersection of those two books. That's how I see it.
You talked about the Hegelian dialectic earlier, and I wanted to say a few things and then really wrap it up and ask you the question, do you think Trump is controlled opposition or not? So I'm going to say a few things that I've just been seeing recently. I root for him. I like him. I hope, I don't know if I like him that much anymore, but I'm rooting for him. I hope that he's the real deal. I'm going to give you a few examples. First one is, he posts on his True Social. He says, basically, we just changed our name to the Department of War, and Chicago is going to find out what war really means or something. And it's like him, an AI picture of Trump in a cowboy hat. And all the Democrats freak out because they're like, Trump's declaring war on Chicago. And I'm not even talking about him sending the National Guard. That's a different conversation. But it's like, why even post that on True Social? Sometimes I feel like Trump is an agent of chaos where he constantly spins everything so everyone gets mad. The right defends Donald Trump because the left's crazy, right? They're always wrong about everything. And then it creates almost this WWE arena where on every topic, it's like, well, now Epstein's a Democrat hoax because Trump said so. And now it's just a left-wing thing, even though it's deeper than that. So I could do a lot of examples, Operation Warp Speed, him putting Bill Gates at the White House, people like Rubio that he used to say were the puppet of the Adelson family. Now he's hiring Marco Rubio. He endorses Lindsey Graham. He's mad at Thomas Massie. He's funding the opposition to Thomas Massie, who I think is one of our more America First congressmen. With all that being said, those are just a few examples that come to my mind. What's your answer, Rex? Do you think Trump is controlled opposition, or do you think, or you're not sure? What's your opinion on it?
You kind of got to shake the magic 8-ball. That's how I'll give my answer. I'll say, like, sources say yes or leans to yes. I'm not fully there yet because I believe a lot of it may just be like a pathological need to be liked. And he's kind of been the road to hell, paved with all those good intentions and whatnot. But it has become kind of unavoidable to even, you have to ask the question at this point, right? And I'm not fully there yet. I tend to lean towards yes, but I mean, just you follow the money and you follow the wars. He's doing everything he promised not to do. So, I mean, you have to say probably so. And that sucks, right? Like we're led through a series of contradictions in history, and the Overton window, the goalpost just keeps shifting and shifting and shifting. What we'll put up with, what we'll think is okay. And I think he may be the harbinger of the new age in that way. I think he's the final domino to fall. I hope he hasn't fallen, but I think he has.
We could talk about how brainwashed the left wing is, but I just want to go to just some Trump supporters, not all. I'm not trying to stereotype, and maybe we'll talk about the left later. But, Trump says Epstein's a Democrat hoax, and he tries to explain it like, I do agree that the Democrats only care about Epstein because it's convenient. I 100% agree with that. But at the same time, I never expected Biden to do anything for me because I can't stand Joe Biden. So with Trump in office, it's not like I didn't care under Biden. It's just the same reason I voted for Trump. I want the border closed and I want Epstein disclosure. You're the guy to do it. It's not going to be Biden. So I agree with some of the things they're saying with that, but I do think he's kind of trying to brand the Epstein thing as a Democrat hoax. And this is what I'll say about not all, but some Trump supporters, the ones that will go to my Facebook comments and say, Epstein's a Democrat hoax. It's not a big deal. It's just trying to take away from Trump's accomplishments because Trump and Caroline Leavitt are saying that. If Trump came out tomorrow and he said, actually, Epstein is not a Democrat hoax, it is the rabbit hole that leads to everything, the people that are saying it's a Democrat hoax would then be like, wait, actually, it is the rabbit hole. Do you see that with certain people, not all that follow Trump, where it's like he can almost just do war is peace, peace is war, left is right. It's a Democrat hoax. It's not. And I feel like overnight they would shift and be like, you know what? Actually, it's not a hoax. Because like, I don't think the people saying it's a hoax now, if Trump came out and said, actually, it's not a hoax, it's real, and it's the rabbit hole that leads to everything, I don't think that his supporters would keep calling it a hoax. I think they would basically mold and change their opinions to what Trump says.
Yeah. No, 100%. I totally agree with that. I mean, you look at these big accounts, you look at DC Drano, Gunther Eagleman, people like this, people like Libs of TikTok, and they would do tricks on it if he asked them to. They do anything he wanted. And it's because people like that, they don't have any, they don't have to have any loyalty to their audience because they're not a part of a brand, an actual show with history. They're not an artist like yourself or a broadcaster, like the both of us are. They don't actually have to be consistent. They can just turn on a dime because it's their job to influence. They're influencers. That is such an ugly word. Think about it. Their job is to influence the public, and they are just an arm of the administration ultimately, and they would turn on a dime. As to the Epstein thing, it is so insulting. It is so insulting to trot this lie out that it's a Democrat hoax. I mean, it would be less insulting to just, kind of like close your eyes and go, it's not real. I don't see it. It never happened. Whatever. Who's this Epstein guy? He never existed. Epstein never existed. Just go with that. Just say, oh, it's all AI generated images. The guy's not real. We made a mistake in the record somewhere. That is more believable than saying that it's a Democrat hoax, right? And I mean, you look at people like Dan Bongino, right? I remember being like 12, like Dan Bongino being on the show. I remember being a little older. He hosted the Fourth Hour. Like, that's the assistant deputy director of the FBI. We know for a fact that he was at some point like a pro-liberty, pro-freedom, really like pro-America truth guy. And then something just happens, right? Something just happens. And then they're like, yes, we saw no evidence of anything, and he killed himself. He killed himself. And you're just like, it's a totally different dude than we just saw even, 5 minutes ago, 6 months ago. During the election, he was advocating for all this. And he goes, I've seen the file. I've seen the file. Yeah, you seen the file, bro? You seen the file? Just like Pam Bondi says, oh, I have the list on my desk. And then, oh, no, the list never existed. It's not real, whatever. They're lying to us. They're lying to us openly. And they're doing it in a brazen fashion because they're used to being able to manipulate the boomer. The boomer is like, the old image of like a dude with a fishing pole and he's got a cheeseburger on the fishing pole. He's got a guy on the treadmill walking. That's the boomer. You can't really save the boomer. I mean, there are base boomers out there and they're cool older people. I'm not denying that for sure. Of course not, especially our veterans who are really awake. But I mean, the vast majority, like it's the FAFO mindset. Yeah, he effed around. He found out. Like they just want to like Twitter posts that say that, right? That's what it's all about to the boomer. And, those people, not making any more of them. They're making more of me and Gen Alpha, and there are a ton of millennials and Gen X around that are going to be around for a long time. But these millennials, they ain't going to be around for too much longer. And I think the two-party system will ultimately die because they pander to the older demographic. And I get it. They vote more. They're more easily manipulated. They trust the media more because they grew up with like Walter Cronkite and stuff like that. But it's not a winning strategy. And I think that the tide is turning. I don't like Zoran Mamdani, but you got to admit, what's happening in New York makes a lot of sense. You try to run Andrew Cuomo, who killed grandma, who killed grandma and was like fondling women and stuff. And then you're the Democratic Party. You're the party of Me Too. And then you're like, oh, this Muslim guy's winning. Like, how could this happen? Like, it doesn't make sense. America is dead. People don't like America anymore. No, people like America. They just don't like you at the end of the day. So all these reactions make a lot of sense to me. And I hope that the boomers don't kill us all with a nuclear war because of how they vote. That's what I hope.
That was a good transition because this is kind of a productive convo I think we can have. We're on the same page where same thing with Mom Donnie. I heard him talk recently and I'm like, dang, they already got him. Like he already sounds like Vivek Obama to me where he's like talking like, I was like, dude, he's already fake. He didn't even get an office yet.
Speech therapist. He's got that coach. It's all dialed in. Yeah. He's establishment, but go ahead.
100%. Why he ran, they ran him against Andrew Cuomo, who has a horrible track record, and he did do really good social media work. And I even see Gavin Newsom doing good social media work. I used to live in California. I despise Gavin Newsom, but he
now.
Sadly, he does make a few points, even though I hate him. And I think he's exposing kind of that older Republican blind spot that you're talking about. Two things I've seen him say that he's totally right about, and probably for the wrong reasons. But, when Trump is going into D.C., which I'm fine with, Chicago, which is a Democrat city and a Democrat state, they're saying, why don't you go into the Republican states that have even more crime like Memphis? And there are Republican states that have more crime. It's just the cities are Democrat, and the demographics we won't talk about because that's racist. But he's bringing up these points, and I don't think they know how to respond to them. And then also, I think it was Kennedy, not Bobby, but there's a different Kennedy that's in the Congress, older dude, and he was like, "Oh, 66% of kids agree with socialism." And then Gavin Newsom retweeted it, and he said, like this, and it said, Trump takes 10% stake of Intel. So I don't like socialism, but Trump did do socialism with Operation Warp Speed. I do think the government taking a percentage of any sort of company is borderline socialism. So it's hard for the Republicans to stand on their values because they don't really have values. Like they pretend to be capitalists. They govern. I would say they campaign like Ron Paul. And then they govern like Lindsey Graham, but during the campaign, they're going to stop the spending and then they don't. So, talk more about that blind spot, because I do think without Trump, the Republicans could lose everything if they can't figure out like their weak spots, because the talking points don't work when you don't actually do what you say.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, it's just, I think people are just tired of it, really. We're tired of having our emotions stirred up. We're tired of being promised, peace, like a peaceful revolution of American ideas and American freedom and bringing the jobs back and stopping the wars. I think people are just gassed out. Like it's emotionally fatiguing. If you look at all of Trump's political messaging, it's old Americana, it's the flag, it's the music, it's the eagle, it's the troops, it's all that. You know what that reminds me of is George Bush, right? Like, how long has this whole cycle been going on? It's been going on forever. And we're promised peace with the colors of war. That's what it seems like to me. We're promised liberation, but what liberation means is toppling some third world country, not getting these corrupt, paid off on the dole politicians out of office. We're promised revolution, and we're told to vote for people like Lindsey Graham. Like, I mean, I want to go to South Carolina. I've never been. I've been in North Carolina. The people there that I've met that are from there are great. But how's this guy getting voted for? How are they putting Lady G in office? Something's up here. And I don't think that election fraud only cuts one way. I think it cuts in the favor of the establishment. And I think that's something that we're going to have to look at a lot in the future when we do actually have these third-party candidates that run independent out of the system. We're going to have to see how they do, because I don't think that they'll be treated fairly. So
Trump endorsed Lindsey Graham too. So it's hard. Yep. If Trump endorsed good people, this is a whole nother conversation that I'll bring up now, but I like some people that Trump likes, and I think Marjorie Taylor Greene's doing a good job. I really like Thomas Massie. I don't agree with everything he says, by the way. We're different people, but I don't think he's one of the bad guys in Congress. I think he's one of the good guys, and Trump's trying to replace him. So I feel like slowly, like Trump used to be like half neocon, but half based, and like half like Tucker Carlson, but half Mark Levin. And I think he's slowly turning into Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin. I mean, you remember his first term, Ben Shapiro was always upset at Trump, which
hated him. I used to work in the pick and pack center, the old fulfillment center that we had for the Infowars operation. I used to listen to Ben Shapiro's show like every day when it would come out. And all he would do, he was a pro hater. He was drinking the haterade. That's all he would do. And now this is the guy telling me that I'm bad because I don't want to support what's going on right now. Like, you gotta judge people by their enemies and their friends, ultimately.
Ben's really happy now. I know I follow Trump on True Social because I try to find some of his better posts and post them on my Facebook, since Trump doesn't post to Facebook. He only posts on Truth. But you know, I see Trump's True Social every day, and I think he shares Mark Levin more than any other broadcaster, where I'd rather him do a little bit of Tucker, a little bit of your father. I mean, pretty much like anyone but Mark Levin. But the fact that Trump, his favorite journalist now is Mark Levin, to me, I feel like Trump's slowly turning into Lindsey Graham and Mark Levin. It's just, you know, hard for people to see it. And also Trump is he's such a good social, like he's just so great at social manipulation. He's funny. He's interesting. So like the second you get mad at Trump, I remember he was annoying me. And then he did that whole like, Israel, Palestine, they've been fighting for so long. They don't know what the frick they're doing anymore. You know, and I was like, oh, that's funny. So it's like, as soon as you feel like he's annoying you, he always kind of comes back and gives you something you want to like keep you in. But then I wonder, like, is that by design or is he just, you know, and also I think that's why backlash is good, because when we complain, I do feel like we get results. Like, I feel like they change their messaging and like, oh, you know, your base is getting upset. Like, you got to not do that. So I do feel like kind of pushing back that maybe that's why he does do the things that we like.
Are there really that many people watching Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk and all these folks that just kind of push that same message? No, there aren't. There really aren't. Sure, there are a lot of people, just by a generic definition of a lot, but the interest, the fervor, the spirit in people that are kind of that more establishment Republican, I feel like a lot of them have drifted over to more, you know, right-wing, you know, independent style. And as the audience gets smaller and smaller, as the parents that take their kids to TPUSA events start having the kids not want to go because the kid's watching Nick Fuentes or Alex Jones or something like that, as that happens, as it goes on, I think we're seeing, you know, just kind of a repeat of the dinosaur media, right? Like, they're pushing these people on us that nobody wants to watch. And it breaks my heart that you're telling me this is news to me. I didn't know this, that he just reposts Mark Levin all day.
I would say I look at his True Social every day because, like I said, I try to pick my favorite posts and share them with my audience that probably hasn't seen them. I would say he shared Mark Levin more than any other like news host in the last like 3 months, maybe like 10, 15 times, or, you know, and anybody else. I don't see him sharing anyone else as frequently as Mark. That's just my analysis.
That is tough. And then he gets it. He's getting his news from Mark Levin. I mean, I'm an American, and this is why you must support what I say. I am Mark Levin. It's not even pleasant to listen to. I don't have the best radio voice or broadcasting voice, but he sounds like a skunk on amphetamines or something. And this is who Trump is watching. I mean, it comes back to me feeling like he's just gotten a little old, you know, because like he hears Mark Levin glaze him, he might just support him, but I don't know. See, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm very, you know, critical of Trump and whatnot on my Twitter, but I do like the guy still kind of. I want to. I just every day it's like, Fredo, you're breaking my heart, you know?
Amen. Let me ask you this question, and don't mind if the list is rough and you can explain each of your picks. Cause even like if someone asked me this, I would have to explain, cause I kind of go through phases, but could you give me your top 5 like podcasters or news hosts that you've liked recently or that have been interesting to listen to?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with the one I spend the most time watching. That's going to be Judge Napolitano. So Judge Napolitano is kind of the flip side of the coin to Pete Hegseth. They both worked at Fox News around the same time. They both knew each other very well. Hegseth, of course, is now Secretary of War and whatnot, and is perpetuating these struggles across the globe. And Judge Napolitano has gone independent, really, and has started a YouTube channel that's huge, especially globally. And he has the best guests in the world on, interviews them constantly, and he's massively anti-war. So I get most of my geopolitical news coverage from Judge Andrew Napolitano. He is the one that I watch the most, I would say. Infowars, Alex Jones, my dad, of course. I'm a huge show fan. I catch most of the shows a week. I'm a big fan of broadcast media, so I watch a lot of TV and listen to a lot of it in my car. So he's number 2 for me for sure. You know, I have to think about this a little bit. Do Dissidents, they're kind of left-wing guys. They've really, widened my perspective on how I see things. And, if we're the richest country in the world, why can't we have healthcare? Why do we pay the most and get the least? And that's an argument that really resonated with me. I grew up really laughing at single payer and really criticizing that idea, but I'm pro that. And I'm open about that position. We may disagree on that, whatnot, but my mind was changed by those guys and by what they talked about. And they have a real sense of morality over on Due Dissidents that I find very appealing and makes me want to be a better broadcaster, makes me want to be a better person. Jimmy Dore is incredible, great guy, kind of the pioneer of more like liberal left-leaning people, especially accepting the truth around COVID. That's someone that it's great to go, hey, you want to, someone that's not into all this stuff, you go, hey, you want to check out this channel, Jimmy Dore? And he's kind of approachable and easygoing and very funny. And I love when he has Kurt Metzger on and all that. Like, that's a great channel. I spend a lot of time watching Jimmy Dore. Nick Fuentes is in there. He's on the list. Most talented broadcaster I've ever seen. Does the best show out of anyone I've ever seen, just on a pure like raw talent level. I could never, like, there are a few factoids that I have in my head that I'm trying to like stay connected and like tell my story and make it make sense for my argument. That guy has the craziest recall that I've ever seen. I've only ever seen it in one person other than him, and that's my father. So I'm a big fan of him just on an ability and raw talent level. His power level is insane. So I'm a big fan of Fuentes, but I watch a lot less of his stuff. It's just more of like, I'm kind of in awe of what he's able to do in that home studio. It's big influence on why I did this here, right? And then number 5, who do I watch? MMA Guru. Watch a lot of MMA Guru videos. Big fan of like UFC and all that type of stuff. Watch a lot of MMA Guru and Lucas Tracy and Bedtime, all those guys. But that's more, just fun. Whatnot.
I know all those guys because I like UFC. And dude, MMA Guru, you could tell he's like super low key based. He only talks about MMA, but when he like spazzes out, you could tell he's super based. Yeah,
I love him.
That's a great list. I know my uncle's a big fan of Due Dissidents, and he always will text me and be like, "Oh, they share my tweets a lot on that show, like or like just videos that I post and stuff."
Yeah, I've seen your tweets on there for sure.
Yeah, every time they do it, he sends it to me. So I got to check out that show. And Jimmy, like, he's definitely one of the left-leaning people that's just super honest guy. And I think that would be a great country if you had a left wing that were like those guys, and then a right wing that was. I heard Judge Knapp is great too. I haven't fully seen him, but a lot of my audience loves him and says he's doing really good interviews and keeping it really raw, really real.
Yeah, I've been really impressed by him. I mean, it just the old era of Infowars, like the Bush-Obama era, when a lot of our great documentaries came out, it harkens me back to those days, the style of content, the style of video, because it's not like a highly produced thing. It's just guys on a Zoom call, like telling the truth, like just speaking. And there's something really appealing about that versus, watching a Fox News show or watching one of these highly produced shows.
Probably no one in my audience is going to get this, but because you said Bedtime MMA, dude, how good is that guy's impressions of people?
It's crazy. He's funny. He's really funny. He cracks me up all the time in my car. Yeah, I like the Jamal Hill impression a lot.
He does every impression. Like, he's like a perfect impressionist. He could do like 10 different, like South African, like Volkanovski. He does their accents perfectly. I was like, and he never shows his face. I'm like, what does this guy look like? Because he could be like 20 different races. You can't tell.
I've seen him once. He did a couple live streams. He's just like kind of like a white skinny Australian kid. He's really cool though.
Yeah. Okay. It's hard to tell. I guess for the last thing, I'm in no rush, but I want to just ask you, because I know you said, you mentioned the Ukraine war. You said you were ready to get back to broadcasting after doing supplements for a while. Not that it's funny, but it is funny that you're so good at that, because Alex is like, dude, his sales, he's been selling for 30 years. So it makes total sense that you've learned a lot from him through that and that you were doing that. But what really brought you back? And I guess like what's the most interesting to you right now? Like, if you had your own show and it was starting, like, what would you want to talk about like today?
Well, my own show will be starting soon. Still figuring things out, trying to do a couple different shows. I'm doing it's not a podcast, it's a show, but it's a 2-man thing. And it's me and a buddy who's also kind of like an entrepreneur in kind of the business space. We're both employers, right? That's called The Gray Area. You can follow us on at Gray Area Talks on X. But I mean, the reason why I'm doing all this is because the situation has gotten undeniable. I believe that we are going to see a serious recession, possibly even a depression style incident occur around 2027, 2028. And I want credibility. I want to be able to say, hey, it took me a while, but I came back and I started to speak out about this. There's too much bad going on right now. You can't say nothing. So ultimately, that's why I'm back. That's why I'm here. And I love business. I love what I do. I love creating high quality supplement products for people. I'm very into the science of all of it. And I'll be doing my morning show will be a lot about that. It's a 2-hour morning show, 6 to 8 a.m. on my Twitter profile. You'll be able to view it, Rex at Dawn. But I'm very into the technical side of things over there. And I like to educate people on that. But business is good. Business is great. Business is good. Business is whatever. I've always been really passionate about doing this, about being a broadcaster. I mean, this was my dream as a kid. You have to understand. Like this is what I always wanted to do. But, life takes different twists and turns. You end up doing different things. And I just always, life in a lot of ways is skill acquisition. And it's about getting better at things and having, a talent or an ability that has, the ability to positively contribute to the world, and to obviously put money in your pocket ultimately, because we all have to feed ourselves. We all have to stay alive and whatnot. And I employ people, so I have to make my payroll and whatnot. But there's something noble about speaking truth to power and being real about what's going on when so many people are being fake about it. So that's why I'm back. That's why I'm here. I'm not used to doing this. I'm getting a little tongue-tied because I'm a little tired in the face, but I absolutely love this. I hope that was an okay answer.
No, it's been great, and I'm excited to see you back. Like I said, I saw you when you were super young, and me and my buddy, like we were catching some of your stuff on Infowars, whether it was on Twitter or Band.video, and we were like, man, he has so much potential because your father and mother did a great job. Just like you were locked in. Now you're locked in at a young age, and it's hard to be that articulate about really deep topics, very sensitive, politics, religion. These are tough things for people to understand at any age. And I remember seeing you at a young age being so good at it. And also, you have, I think, the wit of your father, but you have your own personality as well. So I'm glad to see you back. As soon as you popped up on Twitter, dude, I barely do interviews and I don't really have that many people on, but I was like, I want to talk to Rex just because I feel like now.
I really appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for really welcoming me back to the internet. It means the world to me. And this has been a phenomenal interview. I've really enjoyed it. You're a great interviewer.
Appreciate it. I agree. No, I'm just but any last words for anybody? Let them know where they can find you and just any message to everybody before we wrap it up.
For sure. So I would humbly ask if you like what I have to say or are just interested in me, follow me on Twitter at Rex Jones News. That's with the Z. That's like REXJONESNEWZ, Rex Jones News with the Z. Be really cool if I could get some follows there. I'm going to be doing shows 3 days a week. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a morning show Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. That'll be live on my Twitter. And we'll get into a lot of the science behind supplements and manufacture and what these things actually do metabolically on the receptor sites in your body. We'll be talking a lot about current events and politics and all the things that I'm interested in, want to speak on, but haven't had the platform to do it. And I'll be live Sunday doing a show called Tomorrow's News Tonight, which was a show that Infowars was going to do, but I was just like, that name's too good. I got to take it. I have to take it for myself. So I'll be doing that Sunday night show from 6 to 8 p.m. after my dad gets off the air, 6 to 8 p.m. And that'll be on Rumble and on X. I'm very sorry that I don't have those to plug yet. I've just been very busy with work and whatnot. We're going through a big move at the warehouse right now. So I haven't actually made those accounts, but I will make those accounts very, very soon. One account that is made that I really ask that you follow is Gray Area Talks on X. I already filmed an episode of that with my good buddy and fellow businessman, entrepreneur, employer, Tim Tompkins. We both work together kind of in, the e-commerce space and other things like that. And we've got, kind of a unique perspective as it comes to global issues in the economy. So I'm really looking forward to getting that show on the road. It's already filmed. It's being edited right now. We're putting in clips and whatnot, but I hope to release that this weekend, possibly Friday if my guy gets it done. But Gray Area Talks, Rex at Dawn, and then Tomorrow's News Tonight. That's what I'm up to. That's what I'm doing. And I'm just super thankful that I was able to come on live and talk. And I hope we can do this again at some point.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, man, you're an easy guest to have on because no matter what my subject is, I feel like you're knowledgeable about everything. So if you want, you could be a recurring guest, and anytime I think it's a good topic for you that I want to weigh in on, I'll have you on.
Anytime you want me, hit me up, and I'll be happy to come on stream. And I really love this, man. I enjoy this. This is my favorite thing to do. But I'll get better at it as time goes on. It's life's a process, as they say.
No, you're the man. I appreciate you coming on. You'll definitely be back. And I want to let people know too, I got 300 God bless hats coming in, black and white and well, half of the black ones are God is great. But on dreamrare.com, my shop, I'm going to have them later this week. So check. I only got 300 of each. So I'm just letting people know that. Dreamrare.com. Check out my shop. Thank you, Rex, for coming on. You'll be back soon. And you did awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
All right. Let us know in the comments what you think, folks. Appreciate you for watching Dream Rare Podcast.